The Shattered Council. The council chamber of the KRL Dominion had stood for over 3 millennia, its walls carved from crystalline alloys that hummed faintly with the memory of every decision made within. Its domed ceiling captured and refracted light into rainbow shards that danced across the floor, illuminating the delegates gathered below. A dozen alien species had assembled, each representing their own empire, clan, or coalition. And at the center of this ancient room, under the watchful gaze of every eye, stood the humans. Captain Arundel Voss adjusted his stance, his polished nanofiber suit subtly shifting in color to reflect his surroundings. Even among these alien civilizations, humans carried a presence, calm, deliberate, confident, that no species could ignore. Arundel's dark eyes swept the chamber, noting the tension in the air. Tentacles twitched, claws tapped, and bioluminescent skins flickered nervously. Every species there had dominated their corner of the galaxy for centuries. And yet they were uneasy. This council has endured countless crises, hissed Tharvok, the Ixari delegate, his spidery limbs clicking against the polished obsidian floor. And now, we are to consider the humans. A species barely a century into interstellar expansion. Arundel's lips curved into a faint smile. Humans do not rely on history. We rely on results. And our results speak for themselves. The chamber buzzed with whispered commentary. Humans had only recently breached the Outer Rim, a region considered inhospitable and unworthy of imperial attention. Yet in less than 50 years they had colonized worlds others had abandoned, built thriving ecosystems, and established cities where alien species had failed. For many this was audacious. For some, threatening. Xyler of the Vorin, an amphibious diplomat with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, leaned forward. "Do you truly believe a single species can rise so quickly without consequences?" he asked, his jagged teeth glinting as he spoke. Arundel's voice carried a calm authority. "We don't just rise, we adapt. We learn. We endure. That is why we stand here today, not as subjects to tradition but as equals." Tharvok emitted a harsh, clicking laugh. "Equals. You are a fledgling species. You speak as if your fleeting victories could rival millennia of governance." The humans remained unshaken. At their side, Celera Miles, a strategist whose reputation for foresight rivaled the oldest council records, tilted her head slightly, studying the room. Her sharp green eyes flicked to Jorik Vane, a scientist whose innovations on frontier worlds had already rewritten the rules of survival. They were more than diplomats, they were proof that humanity had a place among the stars. The moderator's crystalline form activated, projecting its neutral presence above the chamber floor. "Order. The council shall hear the human claim." Arundel stepped forward, the hum of the chamber's energy resonating through his suit. "Delegates," he began, his voice echoing through the domed space, "humans do not seek conquest. We seek coexistence. Yet we will not kneel. We will not be dismissed. The Outer Rim colonies, planets considered uninhabitable, are flourishing because of our ingenuity. We have solved problems that others deemed impossible. That is why we ask for recognition. Equal recognition." Murmurs rose, some skeptical, others incredulous. The walls of the chamber pulsed, projecting holograms of the human colonies, verdant forests on worlds once barren, oceans artificially engineered on airless planets, cities built under harsh, unforgiving skies. The projection highlighted the audacity and brilliance of human effort, and for a moment the council was silent. The luminary of Orithis, an energy being delegate, its form shimmering like liquid light, spoke through vibrations and color. "Your species is unlike any catalogued in our archives. Where others falter you adapt. Where others fear you endure. And when cornered you flourish." This chamber witnesses not just the claims of humans, but the embodiment of evolution in motion. A subtle tension spread through the council. Some species, like Xyler, bristled at being compared to a fledgling species whose adaptability now outshone ancient wisdom. Others, like Gorath of Tenerax, a hulking, stone-like creature, regarded the humans with grudging curiosity. The centuries-old order of the galaxy had been shaken by creatures whose history was measured in mere centuries. Arundel turned to his team. Celera and Jorik were calm, exuding the quiet confidence humans had honed over millennia of survival. Their strength lay not in raw power but in unpredictability, in the ability to innovate under pressure. That same ingenuity had allowed humans to endure hostile planets, survive alien predators, and thrive where others had failed. The moderator spoke again, its voice resonating like a gong through the chamber. "A decision shall be made in one cycle. Humans will either be granted recognition or their progress will face restriction. Arundel nodded once. Then let history remember this moment, that humans stood not with fear but with resolve. That we came not to dominate, but to rise alongside those who have ruled for eons. And that our time among the stars has only begun. Outside the crystalline walls of the council, the stars continued their indifferent march across the void. Inside, history trembled. The old empires had grown complacent, and the first tremors of their fall were stirring. At the same time, humanity, so young, so audacious, stood ready to claim its place. The shattered council would be remembered not for the debates it hosted, but for the moment the galaxy began to realize humans were exceptional, and the rise of humanity had begun. Whispers of rebellion. The aftermath of the council chambers session rippled through the KRL Dominion like a silent quake. Outside the towering crystalline walls, on planets that had long been obedient to the old empires, rumors swirled of a new power emerging. Humans, so audacious, so unpredictable, had dared to demand equality. And in the shadows of grand halls, whispers of rebellion began to take root. On the desert world of Calith Prime, in a city carved from pale stone and glass, the Ixari delegate Tharvok convened a secret assembly. His spidery limbs tapped rhythmically against the floor as he paced. "The humans cannot be allowed to stand among us," he hissed. "They are reckless, unpredictable. Their colonies thrive where our strategies failed. If we concede even a fraction of authority to them, the council will crumble." Beside him, Marvix, a sleek, serpentine strategist, coiled, eyes glinting with suspicion. "Rebellion must be subtle. If we strike too openly, the luminaries and the Tenerax will see it as aggression. Humans are cunning. They will anticipate such moves." Tharvok paused, clicking his mandibles in thought. "Let it be subtle, then. Seed doubt, manipulate factions, exploit fear. The humans are a spark, but we will ensure they burn without consuming us." Meanwhile, light years away on Syndralis, a frozen moon orbiting a gas giant, humans were preparing for the next council cycle. Arundel Voss stood atop a viewing platform in the human diplomatic ship Horizon's Edge, gazing at the swirling auroras of the moon. Beside him, Celera Miles unfolded a holographic map of the Outer Rim colonies. "Our colonies are thriving, but that also makes them targets," Celera observed. "If the old powers attempt sabotage or blockade, we must be ready." Jorik Vane, tinkering with a small drone that hummed softly at his feet, looked up. "They'll try. But humans have faced hostile worlds, dying ecosystems, and predators that would have wiped out any other species. We adapt, we survive, we innovate. They underestimate what humans can do." Arendel's gaze hardened. "Then we let them underestimate us. The council may think this is about diplomacy, but it's also a test of survival. And humans, we do not fail such tests." Back on Calith Prime, Tharvok and Marvix began mobilizing loyalists within the council. Discontented factions, jealous delegates, and ancient rivals quietly aligned themselves, ready to resist human inclusion. Subtle interventions began. Trade disputes were inflamed, messages were leaked, and propaganda whispered across the outer sectors. Humanity's accomplishments were framed as reckless expansion, their ingenuity portrayed as dangerous arrogance. Yet humans had their own silent allies. The luminary of Orithis, along with select Tenerax representatives, had begun quietly advocating for Arendel's cause. Observe their resilience. The luminary's ethereal voice vibrated across encrypted communications. "Humans rise where we stagnate. They do not dominate, they evolve. Recognition of their place will benefit all." Even within the council, doubt began to fracture ancient alliances. Delegates who had once clung to rigid traditions whispered in corners, debating the risks of rejecting humanity outright. Xyler of the Vorin, previously a skeptic, studied reports of human colonies thriving on worlds where alien species had failed. "Perhaps, we have judged them too harshly," he muttered. Humans, however, were not idle in the face of subtle threats. In the Horizon's Edge, Arundel convened a strategy session with Celera and Jorik. "The council is divided, but division works in our favor," he said. "We do not need to fight openly. Influence and ingenuity will speak louder than weapons. Show them what humans are capable of, and they will be forced to reconsider." Solara's fingers danced across the holographic map. "We can simulate advanced ecological solutions for worlds the Council deems uninhabitable. We can propose joint ventures with alien species that highlight human adaptability. Let them see that rejecting us means rejecting progress itself." Jorik smiled faintly. "And if they try sabotage, we turn it to our advantage. Every challenge they send us only proves how resilient humans are. It's almost poetic." Arundel nodded. Humans thrive under pressure. That is our edge. Let them whisper, let them plot. Every action they take will reveal their weaknesses. And when the council reconvenes, we will be ready, not just to survive but to stand as equals. As the outer stars rotated slowly in the void, humanity's quiet preparations were underway. Subtle influence, innovation, and resilience would define their strategy. No threats, no matter how cunning, could match the ingenuity and adaptability of humans. In the council chambers, the factions continued their plotting, unaware that the humans had already begun shaping the outcome of the next cycle. Whispers of rebellion circulated, but so did whispers of hope and potential. And in the shadowed corners of the galaxy, where fear and envy twisted even the oldest empires, one truth became clear: humanity would not simply rise, they would transform the galaxy around them. The shattered council had sent ripples through the stars, but it was in the quiet corners, in whispered conspiracies and secret preparations, that the true test of human ingenuity had begun. And humans, as always, thrived where others saw only obstacles. The first strike. The silence of space is deceptive. It is the stillness before a storm, the calm before a reckoning. For the humans aboard the horizon's edge, it was the prelude to the first test of the Council's patience, and the galaxy's underestimation. Arundel Voss leaned over the command console, eyes scanning the readouts from the outer rim colonies. A subtle pattern had emerged. Several systems had experienced unexpected failures in communication and energy distribution. Minor at first but deliberate. Humans had anticipated sabotage. The moment had arrived. "Jorik, your drones?" Arundel asked. Jorik Vane tapped the interface. "Already deployed. They're tracing interference signatures back to Calith Prime and a few fringe networks of the Ixari and Voran alliances. Whoever is trying this wants it noticed, but not caught." Celera Miles stepped forward, fingers brushing against the holomap. "They underestimate us. They think disruption equals control. But humans don't just react. We adapt and we turn threats into opportunities." The first strike was subtle. Entire sectors of alien-controlled communications had been hacked, not with force but with elegance. Systems that had once failed were repaired with improvements, faster than any alien engineers could manage. News of the miraculous recoveries spread through the colonies and across the Council's channels. Whispers grew into a murmur. Humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving. On Calith Prime, Tharvok's spidery limbs shook in frustration. "They anticipated our moves," he hissed, mandibles clicking. "Every interference we sent, every blockade we attempted has been neutralized. And now, they are stronger." Marvix coiled tighter, eyes narrowing. "It is not strength alone. It is ingenuity. Humans think differently. They do not follow predictable patterns. They innovate under pressure." Meanwhile, Arundel convened the Council's observation allies, the luminary of Orithis and the Tenorax representative, Gorathar, who had begun quietly advocating for humanity. "The first strike was never meant to escalate," Arundel said. "It was a demonstration. Humans do not initiate conflict unnecessarily, but we will always secure survival and progress. Let this be a message: underestimate us and you reveal your own vulnerabilities." The luminary's form pulsed, reflecting approval. "Your species embodies adaptability and resilience beyond catalogued parameters. It is remarkable." Back on Calith Prime, the Ixari convened with other dissatisfied delegates. Panic replaced confidence. Systems they had tampered with were now more efficient than before. Trade routes they had tried to manipulate were stabilized by human logistics. Each attempt to undermine the humans only highlighted their own weaknesses. Tharvok's voice was sharp. "We cannot fight them directly. Any open war would expose our incompetence. We must rely on subterfuge, divide the Council, spread doubt." Yet even as the conspirators plotted, the human response had already begun. Celera orchestrated coordinated diplomatic initiatives, proposing joint projects to stabilize outer colonies, offering shared technology, and creating opportunities for alien delegates to participate in the human-led innovations. Each proposal highlighted the benefits of recognizing humanity not as a threat, but as an indispensable partner. Jorik smiled as he monitored the progress. "Every challenge they throw at us becomes a showcase of what humans can achieve. The Council cannot deny it, no matter how hard they try." Arundel's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "We are proving something more than capability," he said quietly. "We are proving that human ingenuity and determination are forces in themselves. The galaxy may resist, but reality cannot be ignored." The outer rim colonies flourished as never before. Planets once abandoned due to harsh climates now supported thriving ecosystems. Trade routes expanded, powered by human-devised energy matrices. Communications stabilized faster than ever, creating networks that rivaled even the most ancient empires. And with each success, alien delegates received reports that defied their expectations. Humans were not just surviving, they were reshaping the frontier itself. On the council's edges, whispers shifted from doubt to fear. Xyler of the Vorin, who had once questioned human audacity, now muttered to himself while reviewing the latest reports. They are improving everything they touch. It is not arrogance, it is evolution. The Ixari, Tharvok realized with growing dread, had initiated the first strike against humanity, but it was humans who had turned it back, stronger than before. Every attempt at sabotage was now a lesson in resilience for the galaxy to observe. Arundel stood tall before his team. The Council believes this was about disruption. They were wrong. It was about clarity. Humans are not a species to be ignored, contained, or underestimated. We endure, we innovate, and we rise. Let the galaxy witness it. In the Council chambers, alien delegates began to acknowledge what they had long feared but never admitted. Humans were exceptional. Where other species relied on tradition, humans relied on adaptability. Where other species hesitated, humans acted. And where other species saw failure, humans saw opportunity. The first strike had been intended to undermine humanity. Instead, it revealed a truth that could no longer be denied. Humans were not simply a rising species, they were a force that could reshape the galaxy itself. The shattered council had witnessed the first tremor of change. The old empires had underestimated humanity, and the consequences were already unfolding. For humans, the first strike was not an attack but a statement. We endure. We adapt. We rise. And for the first time, the galaxy began to realize that the rise of humans would not be quiet. The council divided. The council chamber had never felt so tense. Holographic displays flickered above the circular floor, showing data streams from the Outer Rim colonies. Some delegates leaned forward in curiosity, others recoiled, and a few simply glared, their pride wounded by the undeniable truth. Humans were not just surviving, they were thriving in ways that challenged centuries of tradition. Captain Arundel Voss stood at the center, calm yet radiating authority. Beside him, Celera Miles monitored the council's reactions, noting the subtle shifts in alliances. "Notice how the Vorin are whispering to the Ixari," she said quietly. "Fear has fractured their unity. Humans are no longer outsiders, they are the pivot around which the council's dynamics are turning." Indeed, cracks were spreading. The Ixari, led by Tharvok, still fumed at humanity's audacity, while the Tenerax, massive and deliberate, began to side quietly with human advocates. Even Xyler of the Vorin had stopped mocking and now studied the humans' proposals with cautious respect. Subtle differences in opinion became open debate. The moderator, an impartial intelligence that oversaw council proceedings, addressed the assembly. "The council must deliberate. The proposal before you, recognize humanity as a full participant in interstellar governance." A wave of chatter and discontent rippled through the delegates. Tharvok clicked angrily, multiple limbs flailing in frustration. "This proposal is absurd. Humans are a fledgling species. Our histories and civilizations span eons. How can we entrust them with equality?" Arundel's voice, calm but commanding, echoed across the chamber. "We do not seek to replace your histories. We seek to add to them. Humanity has already proven that adaptability, creativity, and persistence can achieve what centuries of stagnation cannot. Recognition of humans does not diminish the council, it strengthens it." Celera interjected, her voice precise and analytical. "Consider the Outer Rim colonies. The improvements we implemented after sabotage attempts have benefited multiple species. We offer technology, infrastructure, and expertise. Rejecting humanity now is not just prejudice, it is short-sightedness." The Tenerax delegate, Gorathar, rumbled, his immense frame shifting as he spoke. "We have observed the humans. They thrive where we falter, and their innovations are sustainable. Ignoring them threatens the stability of the frontier worlds." Yet Tharvok and his allies were relentless. "This is manipulation," he snapped. "They present every setback as triumph, every failure as lesson. But their species is untested. They have yet to endure the pressures that we, ancient empires, have survived for millennia." The chamber's energy pulsed, projecting visual data from recent crises. Images of terraformed worlds, thriving ecosystems, and colonies surviving deadly storms filled the space. Each human accomplishment contrasted starkly with the alien empire's failures in similar conditions. Zyler's voice, hesitant yet firm, broke the murmurs. Perhaps we have underestimated them. It is not arrogance. It is efficiency, resilience, and innovation beyond precedent. Can we honestly claim that our methods are superior simply because they are older? The Ixari hissed at the comment, mandibles clicking furiously. Tharvok's eyes narrowed. Do not be swayed by appearances. Humans are clever, yes, but cleverness without discipline is chaos. Arundel stepped forward, projecting quiet authority. Discipline does not equal superiority. Adaptability, ingenuity, and the capacity to thrive under impossible conditions are the markers of survival and of leadership. We have demonstrated these qualities repeatedly. Your fear is understandable, but it does not alter reality. For the first time, dissent grew within the council itself. Some species began quietly negotiating behind translucent partitions, questioning the old order. The luminary of Ori, this pulsed in approval, its radiant form bathing the chamber in calm light. Observed delegates, evolution does not always follow tradition. Sometimes it arrives unexpectedly. The shift was subtle at first, then unmistakable. Voices once united in opposition now argued among themselves. Tharvok seethed at each concession, but it was too late. The council had already begun to fracture. Celera whispered to Arundel. The fracture is widening. If we proceed with caution, we can turn their hesitation into formal recognition without conflict. Arundel nodded. Prepare the final proposal. Focus on integration, collaboration, and mutual benefit. Let the council see that humans do not threaten the old empires, they enhance them. Hours passed and debate raged. Every argument for rejecting humanity was countered by demonstrable achievements. Every fear of unpredictability was tempered by human diplomacy, ingenuity, and willingness to cooperate. The chamber, once unified in skepticism, now teetered on the edge of transformation. Finally, the moderator's voice cut through the cacophony. Delegates, it is clear that consensus cannot be reached unanimously. Therefore, a vote shall be conducted. Each species shall cast a declaration of support or opposition. Arundel's heart remained steady. This was not mere politics. It was the culmination of decades of human perseverance, creativity, and resolve. Whatever the outcome, the galaxy would have witnessed the rise of a species that refused to be sidelined. As votes were tallied, the chamber's walls pulsed nervously. Then the results appeared, a narrow majority in favor of recognition. The room fell into a stunned silence. Humans were now officially part of the council, not as novelties, not as exceptions, but as equals. Tharvok's limbs trembled with rage. This is impossible. We will not yield to them. Arundel's voice, calm but unwavering, addressed the chamber. This is not about yielding. It is about acknowledging reality. Humans have survived, adapted, and thrived. We are here to contribute, to collaborate, and to strengthen the galaxy, not to dominate it. A quiet hum swept through the council, resonating with the crystalline walls. For the first time in centuries, the chamber felt different, alive with possibility, tension, and cautious hope. Outside the council, the stars shone as though reflecting the moment. A new era had begun. Humanity had crossed the threshold from curiosity to recognition. The shattered council was no longer a symbol of stagnation. It was a stage for the rise of a species that the galaxy could neither ignore nor suppress. And for the first time, humans stood not only as survivors but as pioneers, heralds of a future where ingenuity, resilience, and courage would define the balance of the cosmos. The Outer Rim Rebellion. Recognition had been granted. Humanity now held a seat among the great powers of the Council. But equality came with scrutiny, and threats that lurked in the shadows of the galaxy were quick to test the newly established human authority. On the frontier world of Syrexis IV, chaos erupted. Colonies that had thrived under human guidance now faced sudden insurrections. Rogue factions of alien mercenaries, secretly funded and coordinated by dissenting council members, struck at key installations, energy cores, communication hubs, and supply depots. The Outer Rim, once stable under human innovation, teetered on the brink of rebellion. Captain Arundel Voss received the first reports aboard the Horizon's Edge. His dark eyes narrowed as he scanned the data streams. "They're coordinated but not unpredictable," he said, voice steady. "These are the same species that plotted against us in the Council. They still underestimate humans." Celera Miles leaned over the tactical display, her fingers tracing the insurgent movements. "They've targeted infrastructure critical to survival, but they've overlooked our redundancies. Humans prepare for failure before it happens. Every colony has contingency systems, every supply chain a backup. They may disrupt us temporarily, but they cannot stop us. Jorik Vane activated a holographic projection, showing small drone fleets deploying across Syrexis 4. We've anticipated sabotage. Automated repairs are already underway. Every strike they make, we collect data, adapt, and improve. This rebellion is revealing weaknesses in their strategy, not ours. Arundel nodded. Exactly. Humans do not simply react. We turn threats into opportunities. Let's ensure the Outer Rim sees that clearly. The first counteroffensive was subtle, not a display of force but of ingenuity. Human engineers remotely stabilized energy cores before explosions could occur. Drones repaired damaged infrastructure faster than the saboteurs could destroy it. Communication networks, attacked in a dozen locations, were rerouted through quantum relays that made interception nearly impossible. Every action demonstrated one immutable truth: humans adapted and thrived under pressure. Meanwhile, in hidden chambers across the galaxy, Tharvok seethed. The Ixari had underestimated human foresight. How can they anticipate every move? He hissed, pacing his spindly limbs. Our strikes should have crippled them. Instead, they use our own attacks to grow stronger. Marvix coiled in agreement, eyes narrowing. This is beyond strategy. Humans are unpredictable. And more than that, they learn. Every challenge only refines their approach. On Syrexis 4, human forces moved not to retaliate but to stabilize and empower. Colonists, trained in crisis response, worked alongside human drones to secure resources. Engineers deployed automated repair units, scientists implemented energy redistribution systems, and strategists coordinated with alien allies sympathetic to the humans' cause. Each success was broadcast across the Outer Rim, proof that humanity's rise was not a threat to others but a boon to all who sought survival and prosperity. Arundel addressed his team in the command chamber. This rebellion is not merely an attack, it is a demonstration. The galaxy is watching how humans respond. We do not crush our enemies out of vengeance. We outthink them, adapt faster, and show that cooperation and innovation achieve far more than fear or brute force ever could. Solara's green eyes gleamed. We turn chaos into clarity. The Outer Rim sees that humans do not simply survive, they thrive. And in thriving, we inspire others to join willingly rather than through fear or coercion. Jorik added, every sabotage attempt is a lesson for us. Every misstep by the insurgents is a map of their weaknesses. They think they can challenge humanity, but they are teaching us how to become unstoppable. By the end of the cycle, the rebellion had been neutralized, not with sheer power but with human ingenuity. Colonies not only survived, they improved. Energy systems were more efficient than before. Communication networks were more resilient. Supply chains were faster and more secure. And everywhere, humans' adaptability shone as a beacon of competence in a galaxy that had long relied on tradition over innovation. News of the Outer Rim stabilization reached the Council. Delegates who had doubted humanity's abilities were forced to confront the reality: humans were exceptional. They did not conquer through fear. They did not dominate through arrogance. They excelled because they learned, adapted, and endured where others faltered. Even Tharvok recognized the undeniable. They are extraordinary, he admitted, mandibles clicking slowly. Perhaps too extraordinary. Arendel's voice, calm but unwavering, broadcast across secure channels to allies and observers alike. The Outer Rim rebellion has been resolved not through violence alone, but through strategy, resilience, and innovation. Let this be a reminder: humans rise not because we seek dominance but because we refuse to be stopped. Adaptation is our greatest strength, and it is stronger than fear, hatred, or tradition. In the shadows of the Council, murmurs shifted once more. Some factions began quietly aligning with humanity, seeing advantage in collaboration rather than resistance. Others, like Tharvok and his Ixari cohorts, retreated into cautious observation, forced to acknowledge that a new force had entered the galaxy, and it could not be ignored. The Outer Rim was no longer a frontier at risk, it was a showcase. Humanity's rise was visible, undeniable, and unstoppable. Across planets, colonies, and council chambers, one truth echoed: humans did not just survive, they transformed challenges into triumphs. And the galaxy, whether it feared or admired them, would never be the same again. The fall of the old guard. The galaxy had begun to shift. What once seemed immutable, the dominance of ancient empires, the rigid hierarchies of centuries, was cracking under the weight of human ingenuity. Every success in the Outer Rim, every demonstration of resilience and adaptability, had exposed weaknesses the old powers could no longer hide. In the council chamber, the atmosphere was electric. Delegates no longer whispered solely in fear. Debate had turned into confrontation. Tharvok's spidery limbs twitched with barely contained fury. "We cannot allow this species to reshape the council," he hissed. "Their audacity is undermining millennia of order." But order had already begun to crumble. The Vorin, once loyal to the Ixari agenda, now hesitated in their opposition. The Tenarax, massive and deliberate, openly supported human initiatives, praising the Outer Rim's successes as proof of what could be achieved when innovation and resilience were allowed to flourish. Even Xyler, the once skeptical Vorin diplomat, argued for cooperation with humanity. Arundel Voss stood at the chamber's center, his dark eyes sweeping across the assembly. "This is not the triumph of humans alone," he said, voice calm yet commanding. "This is the triumph of progress, adaptability, and determination. We do not seek to destroy your empires. We seek to build a galaxy where survival is defined not by tradition, but by ingenuity and courage." The moderator pulsed in agreement, its crystalline form reflecting the tension in the room. "The Council recognizes that the Outer Rim stabilization and human initiatives have shifted the balance of influence. Delegates, the status quo is no longer sustainable." Outside the chamber, subtle upheavals mirrored the Council's debates. Systems previously dominated by alien bureaucracies were realigned with human-led networks. Worlds that had stagnated under rigid management flourished under human oversight. Supply chains, energy grids, and communications became more efficient and resilient, proving once more that humans were exceptional. On Calith Prime, Tharvok convened a desperate meeting with his allies. His mandibles clicked in frustration. "Our influence is collapsing. The humans anticipate every move, adapt faster than we can plan, and inspire loyalty in factions that once obeyed us blindly. We are losing not because of strength, but because of ingenuity we cannot match." Marvix, coiled tightly beside him, hissed, "They are not simply a rising species, they are a new paradigm. Every action we take only accelerates their influence. Resistance is no longer viable." The cracks in the old order were everywhere. The Vorin openly negotiated with human representatives to share technology and coordinate frontier defense. The Tenarax offered training and logistical support for human-led initiatives. Even factions loyal to the Ixari, seeing the momentum, began reconsidering their stance. Arundel addressed the council once more, projecting images of thriving colonies across the Outer Rim. "The galaxy is not won by fear, stagnation, or domination. It is won by adaptation, perseverance, and vision. The humans you see here today are not invaders. We are catalysts, for stability, for growth, for survival. Those who align with progress will prosper. Those who cling to outdated methods will be left behind." Tharvok's limbs trembled in fury. "This is insubordination," he hissed. "They are rewriting the rules of governance. They cannot be allowed to succeed." Yet the council had already moved. A formal vote was called, not just to recognize humanity, but to restructure the decision-making protocols that had allowed stagnation to persist. The old guard, bound by tradition and fear, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Alliances they had relied upon dissolved as species recognized the undeniable truth. Humans were exceptional, and cooperation with them offered tangible benefits. Celera Miles watched the vote unfold. "Notice the subtle shifts," she said. "Delegates who opposed us are now seeking compromise. They know resistance alone cannot succeed. Humans have demonstrated a new standard, one that even the oldest species cannot ignore." When the results were announced, the council erupted. Humanity's proposals passed with a clear majority. Recognition turned into authority. Humans were no longer just participants. They were leaders in interstellar initiatives, coordinators of frontier development, and a model for adaptability and progress. The old powers had not fallen to force or conquest. They had fallen to ingenuity, resilience, and the unmistakable human capacity to adapt faster than anyone else could comprehend. What had been expected as a confrontation had become a transformation. Even Tharvok, bitter but forced to acknowledge reality, admitted quietly to Marvix, They are unlike any species we have faced. This is not the rise of humans alone, it is the eclipse of everything we thought immutable." Arundel, standing in the council chamber's central circle, felt the weight of history. Centuries of stagnation, empire, and tradition had yielded to adaptability, intelligence, and determination. Humanity had not only survived, it had reshaped the galaxy. And as the stars outside shimmered indifferently, The truth resonated across worlds. The old guard had fallen. The shattered council, once a monument to continuity and control, had witnessed the unstoppable rise of humans. Where others had clung to history, humans embraced the future. Where others had faltered under pressure, humans had thrived. And in the silent corridors of the galaxy, one certainty remained: humanity's ascendancy was only beginning. The human horizon. The galaxy had changed. What had begun as whispers of curiosity and skepticism had transformed into undeniable recognition. Humans were a force unlike any the stars had ever seen. Across the council, across the outer rim, and through every system touched by human innovation, the rise of humanity had become a living reality. Captain Arundel Voss stood once more in the council chamber, not as a petitioner but as a leader. Beside him, Celera Miles and Jorik Vane represented the culmination of decades of human ingenuity and perseverance. The chamber was no longer tense with doubt. It was alive with anticipation as alien delegates from every corner of known space witnessed the dawn of a new era. The humans have demonstrated what every species feared but could not deny, Arundel said, his voice echoing through the crystalline walls. We survive where others falter. We adapt where others stagnate. And we rise, not through conquest but through vision, ingenuity, and collaboration. Let this be a testament to the potential of all species willing to embrace change. The Tenorax delegate, Gorathar, rumbled with approval. Your species embodies the principles we thought only myths could achieve. Humans do not merely exist. They transform the environment, the challenges, and the societies they touch. Even Tharvok, the Ixari delegate, had been forced into grudging recognition. Though pride still etched his spidery limbs, he could not ignore the truth. Perhaps, humans are not the threat we imagined, he admitted. They are something different. The galaxy beyond the council was a testament to human achievement. Planets that had once been abandoned by older civilizations now flourished with thriving ecosystems, renewable energy networks, and cities that balanced ingenuity with sustainability. Trade routes that had been plagued by stagnation or danger now moved with efficiency unimaginable to the old empires. Systems that had been isolated, considered lost, were now connected through human-devised quantum communications. Celera Miles addressed the chamber's delegates. What you see is not magic. It is planning, foresight, and adaptation. Humans have always survived the impossible because survival is not merely instinct. It is the application of creativity, courage, and relentless innovation. Jorik Vane projected a map of the outer rim, showing the colonies stabilized and thriving under human leadership. Each world tells a story of challenges overcome. Hostile environments, sabotage, rebellion, they were not obstacles to fear but lessons to master. And now these worlds serve as proof. Humans rise, and in rising, they elevate all who choose to work alongside them. The council murmured in astonishment. Never before had one species demonstrated such rapid mastery over alien technology, ecology, and politics while maintaining a cooperative and ethical approach. The galaxy had long been divided by tradition, conquest, and suspicion. Humanity had united diversity with ingenuity. Arundel turned toward the window of the chamber, looking out at the stars. The council is no longer simply a governing body. It is a stage for potential we have demonstrated. The shattered council has witnessed not the fall of empires through force, but their transformation through example. And humans will continue to rise, not to dominate, but to inspire progress. In the corridors of the council, whispers had shifted once more. Delegates who had resisted now actively sought alliances. Planets once ruled with strict hierarchy now petitioned to adopt human methods for governance and development. Even Tharvok's Ixari began sending envoys to learn from human settlements on the outer rim. Fear had transformed into respect. Respect into cooperation. Outside the council chamber, on the bridge of the horizon's edge, the human crew prepared for the next phase of exploration. New worlds awaited. Unknown civilizations beckoned. The galaxy stretched endlessly, full of challenges, mysteries, and possibilities. And humanity, bold, inventive, and unyielding, was ready to meet it all. Arundel spoke quietly to his team, the first words beyond the formal addresses. We've done more than survive. We've changed minds, reshaped systems, and proven that our place among the stars is deserved. But this is only the beginning. The horizon is ours to explore, and humanity will rise wherever it is needed. Celera smiled, scanning reports of thriving colonies and new frontier initiatives. Every challenge we face will only prove what humans are capable of. Adaptation, resilience, ingenuity, these are not just traits. They are our legacy. Jorik added, and in every new world, every new system, humans will leave a mark, not just of survival but of transformation. The galaxy is vast, but nothing is beyond our reach. The stars outside shimmered as though acknowledging the moment. The galaxy had witnessed the fall of complacency, the eclipse of old arrogance, and the rise of a species that defined progress not through fear or power, but through intelligence, courage, and perseverance. Arundel raised his hand, signaling the crew. Set course for the outermost rim. Humanity will explore, protect, and uplift wherever we go. The galaxy may have underestimated us before, but it will never do so again. As the horizon's edge accelerated into the vast expanse, the council chamber behind them remained alive with the echoes of a lesson learned. Ingenuity, resilience, and the refusal to be bound by limitations could transform the galaxy itself. Humans had risen from the shadows of doubt. They had survived impossible challenges. They had reshaped the council and stabilized the outer rim. And now, gazing at the infinite stars, one truth was undeniable: humanity's horizon was limitless. The shattered council had not only witnessed the fall of old ways, it had witnessed the rise of humans. And the universe would never forget it. Epilogue: The Human Legacy. A century had passed since the shattered council witnessed humanity's rise. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Worlds that were once abandoned or thought uninhabitable now thrived under human stewardship. Trade networks spanned sectors that had once been disconnected for eons, and interstellar communication, once slow and unreliable, was instantaneous across thousands of light-years. Captain Arundel Voss was long retired, his place in the council now held by a new generation of humans, yet his legacy remained. Statues of him, carved in the likeness of humans' resilience and determination, adorned public halls from the outer rim to the core worlds. His name was spoken with reverence across species, a symbol of audacity and wisdom. Celera Miles, now a senior diplomat and council elder, oversaw collaborative projects that spanned multiple empires. Her strategies had evolved from survival-focused ingenuity to visionary planning, creating networks of shared knowledge, technology, and cultural exchange. She had not only preserved humanity's foothold but expanded it, bridging civilizations that had long remained divided by pride or fear. Jorik Vane had become a living legend in the sciences. His innovations in environmental engineering, energy distribution, and adaptive technology had been adopted by countless species. His drones, once tools of defense, now served as guides and educators, teaching fledgling civilizations how to survive and thrive in harsh systems. The Outer Rim, once a chaotic frontier, was now a model of cooperation. Human colonies served as hubs of learning, exploration, and diplomacy. Where alien species had clung to fear or tradition, humans had offered solutions: sustainable energy grids, interlinked communication networks, and ecological restoration projects that transformed barren planets into flourishing worlds. Yet humanity's influence was not built on conquest. It was built on example. Other species observed the human success and began to adopt their methods voluntarily. The Ixari, once rigid and skeptical, now collaborated openly on frontier development. The Tenerax offered guidance and military coordination where necessary, but always with respect for human leadership. Even Tharvok, who had once schemed against humans, now quietly contributed to multi-species initiatives, acknowledging their ingenuity. Arundel, in a quiet moment, gazed at the stars from his residence on Arundel Station, a human-built orbital hub above Syrexis IV. "We have changed the galaxy," he said to Celera, who stood beside him. "Not through domination or force, but by refusing to accept limits. We showed that adaptability, creativity, and resilience can surpass even the oldest civilizations." Celera smiled. "And it continues? Humans did not rise alone, we brought others with us. Look at the Council now, species that once opposed each other are working together. Humans inspired collaboration without demanding it. That is the true measure of our legacy." Beyond the Council, humanity had expanded into the unknown. Exploratory fleets charted unvisited star systems, discovering planets rich with resources and life, forging alliances with intelligent species previously unknown. Every success was shared, every challenge turned into a lesson, every opportunity leveraged to elevate others. Humans were no longer just survivors, they were architects of the galaxy's future. On a distant planet, a young human scientist named Cale Vance activated a holographic map of unexplored systems. He remembered stories of the early Outer Rim colonies, of sabotage and rebellion, and how humans had thrived against impossible odds. "We follow in their footsteps," he said to his team. but we also surpass them. The galaxy is vast, and our role is to ensure that life thrives wherever it reaches. In the council chamber, species once bound by centuries of rivalry now work together to manage galactic resources, trade, and security. Humans held no veto, no absolute power, but their example had created a galaxy where adaptability, cooperation, and intelligence became the new standard. And still the stars beckoned. There were mysteries unsolved, dangers yet to be faced, and worlds still untouched. Humanity's horizon stretched endlessly, unbounded by fear, tradition, or limitation. Every human ship that departed into the unknown carried with it not only supplies and technology, but the essence of what had allowed humanity to rise: courage, creativity, and the unyielding drive to survive and improve. Arundel, watching the newest fleet launch, felt a quiet satisfaction. The humans had proven what many had doubted. A young species could not only rise among the stars but also reshape the galaxy without conquering it. The legacy of humanity was not written in battles won, but in civilizations inspired, worlds transformed, and the unshakable proof that ingenuity, adaptability, and determination were forces stronger than tradition, pride, or fear. As the fleets disappeared into the glittering expanse, Celera spoke softly. They will tell tales of the shattered council and the rise of humanity for millennia to come. But our work is never done. The horizon is still out there. Arundel nodded, his gaze fixed on the infinite dark speckled with stars. And humanity will rise to meet it. Always. The galaxy had witnessed the fall of complacency, the eclipse of old arrogance, and the steady rise of humans. The council had been reshaped, the outer rim stabilized, and countless species inspired to innovate and collaborate. Humanity had begun as a fledgling species, underestimated and dismissed. But now, across countless worlds, the stars themselves bore witness. Humans had arrived and their horizon was limitless. The shattered council had long since fallen into legend, but the legacy of its witness endured. The rise of humanity was no longer a moment, it was a continuing story, unfolding in the boundless expanse of the galaxy.